Hey guys, today welcome to another video. Now today guys, we're going to be doing a review of the GTX 1070 Founders Edition card, and we're talking about what this whole thing is all about. But before I talk about that, I'd like to say that I did a unboxing of this card a couple days ago, so if you guys want to go check it out, I'll have a link on the screen in the description, all the kind of good stuff. So go check it out if you want to go see that, see what's in the box and all that kind of good stuff. Now, what is the Founders Edition? Now, everybody seems to be really confused about what a Founders Edition card is. The only thing is that it's a reference card. Now, the only difference between this being a reference card is that, first of all, it's being called a Founders Edition card, but also, it's going to be sold throughout the lifespan of the entire GTX 1070 series, and that's different than what they've done in the past, where they only sell the Founders Edition cards for a couple months, which is, okay, whatever, I don't really care. And we'll be talking about some of the benefits and some of the drawbacks of this card. So yeah, let's go right into it. Now, the GTX 1070 is really just a slimmed down version of the GTX 1080. It's got fewer shaders, it's got a slightly lower clock speed, which, you know, you have to kind of expect considering that it's a card that's priced about $150 less than its GTX 1080 counterpart. Now, it's going to be I always say that it's going to be it uses the GDDR5 memory instead of GDDR5X memory, which is disappointing, but not a deal breaker. And what this means is that it's going to be only using a TDP of 150 watts, which is great, and it's a lot less than the GTX 1080's TDP of 180 watts, you know, which is fantastic. You know, we want to have lower wattage drawn from the wall because of the fact that a lot of people that are beginning this card are probably going to be using lower power. You're not gonna have to get a super high power power supply, which is great. I'm using a 500 watt power supply, and I'm doing fantastic, and it doesn't seem to be throttling at all, which is a positive, right? So yeah. So aside from that, the GTX 1070 has still a lot of the same features of the 1080, which includes the same reference cooling fan, which is a blowing solution, which is great, and it's really ideal for small cases with very little airflow because of the blowing solution, obviously. And it's also great for when you have two cards that are close together in SLI. For the top card that doesn't get a lot of air, a blowing solution can be really great. And yeah, so the only difference on the actual physically on the card itself is that it's got a GTX 1070 written on it in silver instead of GTX 1080. You know, like, what? It's not that big deal, it's the same thing. Anyway, yeah, so both the cards feature a custom removable backplate, which is great. It's kind of plain, so if you want to get some stickers or anything on there, there's tons of different websites where you can get stickers for the backs of a GTX, for these cards, backplates. You know, they look fantastic, so if you want to go check those out, then I might be able to throw a link in the description if you want to go check out some backplate stickers or custom backplates or anything like that, then that's great. Now, besides that, the card for display ports, it features a single HDMI 2.0, and HDMI 2.0 supports 4K at 60 Hz, you know, so not bad. It also has 3 display ports, 1.4 version, obviously, and these support 4K at 120 Hz, which is respectable, obviously. And display ports are the port of the future, which is great because there are going to be 3 of them on this card, and, well, you know, you want 3 ports on this card because, you know, you want to be doing a 3 monitors, which is great. You know, it also supports 8K at 60 Hz. So pretty epic, and we're probably not be using that for a long time because this really isn't a 4K card. Just you'll see in the benchmarks in a little bit. See, so it also has a single dual link DVI. Now, other than that, other than display, on the outside, there's not much else to say about it. Honestly, it's got some nice curves and all to it, and some nice edges and all, and it just looks great, honestly. But on the inside, it's rocking the new 19 nanometer FinFET process, which is small as hell, and it takes down on power consumption and power leakage and all that kind of good stuff, which is a positive for the card because it's going to be a lot less wattage drawn from the wall, which is fantastic. It's got 8 gigabytes of VRAM, which is crazy because not even like 2 years ago, 8 gigabytes of VRAM thought was just way overkill, and it's great to see that it's coming more mainstream nowadays, and people seem to be using it. A lot more developers are using all that VRAM, which is great because it's there for a reason. Now, the card also has simulation multi-projection, which means that this card will be able to render up to 16 different viewports, which is fantastic for all different kinds of display ports, whether it be what's a good one, whether it be VR, multiple different monitors, having multiple monitors set up, whether it be 4 monitors, 3 monitors, 2 monitors, whatever it may be. That's going to help in the rendering of the games, right? It's also going to help in rendering of projections and all that kind of good stuff, where you know, it's just really cool. And that's kind of something that's more for the future, not for nowadays as much for the most average people. But when we have all these cool different ways of playing our games, different ways of projecting our games, different ways of seeing our games just in general, it's gonna be fantastic that we have this implemented into this card. Now, yeah, the whole point of this is that it's gonna be able to render these multiple display ports without cutting the performance in half like it has done in the last couple of games, which is fantastic, right? Not the last couple of games, last couple of generations of cards, which is fantastic, again, yes. So, other than that, the card is, I'll have all the like technical specs on the screen right now. So, you guys can pause the game, pause the video, whatever you want to do, and you can take a look at them. You know, it's basically pretty average stuff. I'm not going to go over it all because everybody seems to go over that all, and a lot of the average people will not know what the hell that means. You know, I didn't know what that meant even like 6 months ago. So now that I know what all that means, then I get it, but you know, I'm not going to bore you with just reading over what everything is and all that kind of good stuff. So I'm just going to put it on the screen right now so you can pause. So I just kind of been talking so you can go over it real quick. So yeah, so there you go, you see it. So without further ado, let's look at some benchmarks. So starting at 1080p, now it's up on screen as you can see. Now you can see the GTX 1070, GTX 1080, the Titan X, the GTX 970, GTX 770, the R9 390, and the R9 Fury X up there, so you can check those all out. We got Assassin's Creed Unity, Ashes of Singularity, Crysis 3, The Division, Far Cry Primordial, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Witcher 3, and Project Cars. Now they're all running at their highest settings, and you can see the average frame rates right there, and they look pretty good. There's only, I'd say there's about a 25% increase in performance from GTX 1070 to the GTX 1080, while there's maybe like a 30% price increase, which is great. Which is, you mean, you're paying a lot less for frame rate. This is the best price per frame rate card as of right now. You can see that it's slightly better than Titan X, about 5% better than the Titan X, and it is a shit ton better than the GTX 970, and well, I mean, just compare it to the GTX 770 and you'll never it doesn't even come close. So yeah, it's doing amazing on all these games. And yeah, so it's a little bit better than Titan X, which is amazing because this card's coming in at only $450 for the Founders Edition, and then it comes in at $380 starting off for the custom board cards that will be coming out in the future. So like all the MSI cards, all the other cards that aren't created directly from NVIDIA. So yeah, so it's got a 5% increase in performance over the Titan X, and it costs about 55% less than the card, which is, you know, fantastic, and it's great to see that. So let's take a look. Obviously this card destroys in 1080p gaming. It's on Ultra on all these cards, and it's hitting over 60 frames per second on everything besides Ashes of Singularity. And you know, turn down one setting and you're past that, you know, which is amazing, obviously, right? So that's just honestly amazing. So let's take a look at 1440p benchmarks. So yeah, so here we are at 1440p. Now again, same kind of performance gaps between all the cards, obviously, and you can see the cards right now. If you want to pause the video so you can see everything that's going on, you can see all the stuff. Yeah, but overall the performance is great. You seem to be getting roughly 50 to 60 frames per second. Well, it's more like 50 to 70 frames per second on each different game. And these are hard games to run. These are hardcore games, and these guys are also running at the highest possible settings at 1440p. So yeah, from the looks of the frame rates, it looks pretty great. Now next up, let's look at the 4K benchmarks. Now yeah, the 4K benchmarks aren't really going so good. You're running at about 30 frames per second to 40, and yeah, it's a little bit disappointing that it's not as high as it could have been. But I mean, at the same time, it's running the games. You turn down a couple settings on Assassin's Creed Unity, and you've got a great experience. Amazing looking pixels, especially when a monitor probably costs about the same as the video card itself, which is crazy to think about. Yeah, so it looks fantastic. Now, if after looking at all the benchmarks, I can clearly say that this card is a perfect card for 1440p. It's a little bit overkill for 1080p, unless you're looking at those high frames. Unless you have that 144 Hz monitor, then it's not really worth getting it for 1080p gaming. Now, if you're at 1440p at the other hand, then it's totally worth it. You know, you're running a 16 Hz, 60 Hz monitor at 1440p, then you're going to get amazing performance, and it's going to look fantastic, honestly. Now, 4K, at the same time, it's performing great, but 20, 30, 40 FPS is not exactly something I prefer. I prefer to have that 1440p experience with 60 frames per second. That's just my personal opinion, and that's how I like it. When it comes to playing my games, personally, I like a higher frame rate, especially because I play a lot of multiplayer FPS, like Overwatch, which I've been playing a lot of lately. It's amazing. And CSGO, all that kind of stuff, I like playing that, and I like having a higher frame per second. Now, obviously, if I'm playing a game like Total War or Mountain Blade, then it's okay for me to have that 4K experience, but I only have maybe like 30 frames per second, because it's not really that frame rate doesn't matter as much as it would in, say, again, CSGO or something that's a lot more tactical and team-based and competitive. So yeah, after we look at the benchmarks, I can clearly say that this card performs great, but at the same time, I don't think you should get the reference edition, or sorry, founders edition of this card, simply because of the fact that soon, in a month, 2 months, something like that, they're going to be coming out with the MSI, the EVGA, all these cards that are probably gonna have better cooling than a blowing system, unless you have a small case with little airflow where you're trying to compact 2 cards in just a small space in general, not a lot of airflow. Then yeah, this blowing solution cooling system will be fantastic. It will be fantastic for that kind of system if you need to have that small sort of system. But if you have a case where you have a shit ton of airflow, you know, you have a say you're using a mid-tower case, a full tower case, anything like that, then you don't need to get the Founders Edition, just simply because the cooling solution on this card is not as good as it could be, and it's also costing $80 more than if you got a custom card. So it's just something to think about there. So I think that I would recommend that you wait another 2 months, you get the card for $380, $390, and you get a better cooling solution that's going to perform better when it consider overclocking and all that kind of good stuff. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.